The Future Sport Podcast is brought to you by 3Advance, developers of sports tech apps that are AI-powered and UX-focused. So if you're looking to create some apps for your startup or your sports biz calls for some artificial or business intelligence, you should check out 3Advance. They're incredible. Go to 3advance.com. That's the number 3advance.com.
Empire.
The time for eSports have officially come.
Well, Super League has always been about taking that connection a level deeper. We want it to be about local gaming. We want it to be about ways that you can get other kids in your neighborhood or on your college campus to game with you.
That's Ann Hand, chairman and CEO of the Super League. And if you thought esports was huge before, wait until it gets its new traction now. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. Ann Hand thinks of esports like parents of a previous generation thought about Little League. And, well, there is no Little League right now. So we're going to spend the bulk of this show on esports, the opportunity presented with kids and adults alike on lockdown, and traditional sports that we watch and play on hiatus in perpetuity. Austin Smith, co-founder of Mission Control, was already converting traditional leagues into gaming centers, and he'll talk about the here, now, and not too distant future. But let's start with us oldies, who are still trying to figure out how to, quote, fill the time, because that future is now. So, at the time of this taping, there are very few live sports to watch. What are we going to do? How are we going to cope? Let's figure it out with Steve Gardner from USA Today. Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm doing okay, Bram. How are you?
Listen, I'm in this. I get a lot of these questions. How are you going to fill the time? How are you going to fill the space? I'll ask you from your perspective of covering this for USA Today. Without sports, what are you doing?
Well, doing a little bit of sports business and sports media stuff. We're looking a lot more at, what the networks are doing, some of the classic games that are on. I mean, that's, for some people, that helps fill the void a little bit. For some, it's simulation sports. It's playing Stratomatic or other baseball board games, things like that. So there are a lot of things right now that we're using. I just worry that in a couple of weeks or maybe months, if this thing drags on, what will we do then?
So some of the networks here locally in Washington, you and I are both in the Washington area, Monumental Sports Network and NBC Sports Washington tried some simulated games with the Wizards and the Capitals to play out the season on their schedule. And I saw NASCAR did a very cool iRacing series, and the real drivers were taking part in a simulated race. They did a full broadcast around it. Have you gotten any sense of what the general reaction or appetite is for esports or simulated games taking the place of the real games for now?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was really active. Social media was really active for those NASCAR fans that are missing their NASCAR racing. I was watching the simulation. It was, to me, who's not really into the iRacing and all of that, it was fascinating because the details were down to the pixel. I mean, you would think you were at Homestead Speedway. Their billboards were all there that are normally there. The cars looked like normal NASCAR racing cars. So I think that at least for the inaugural one, that FS1 broadcast, I think there was an awful lot of buy-in from people just because they missed the sport so much. And the fact that they actually had real NASCAR drivers and even, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's retired but got back into the virtual car to give his fans a little bit of a jolt of excitement. So I think, to me, it seemed like the reaction to that was tremendous. And the fact that I think the drawing card for that was the fact that Denny Hamlin was actually driving his virtual car. I can see, at the 2K NBA game, for instance, you may not have John Wall or Bradley Beal or somebody like that shooting the jump shots, but you actually had the NASCAR drivers there doing all the moves and passing and all that sort of stuff. So I think that was what was the draw.
Yeah, I'll give them this. Listen, they're trying to be creative here. They have a lot of time to fill as well. There's all these holes in their windows. They're trying to feed the sports fan the best that they can. This podcast obviously is dedicated to sports and technology, and we talk a lot about the business of sports. And since you're kind of following that now, I do wonder, as you've kind of talked to people throughout the industry, who's taking advantage of this time? I mean, there's got to be some opportunities that are out there because of the void in live sporting events.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I don't really get a sense that anybody is leveraging it. Obviously, the big networks that have this treasure trove of recorded games that they can trot out, CBS Sports Network playing all of these classic NCAA tournament games. I don't think I would be looking at CBS Sports Network, even though, I'm in sports media myself. I don't think I would be tuning to them, for instance, in mid-afternoon on a weekday. But I think I will. They're showing the Virginia Elite Eight game that they had against Purdue later on in the day. And so, wow, I remember that game. That was a thrilling game. I'll watch that. So I think they may have a little bit of an advantage there. But beyond that, it's hard to say who's really able to do that. I mean, because the studio shows, the debate shows, talk shows, don't have their full arsenal because they don't have everybody in the same room together. From being, in broadcast media for a long time, the chemistry, the broadcast partner, being in the same studio is huge. And it's hard to recreate that when you're on one screen in one location and somebody else is on another screen in another location.
Yeah, tell me about it. I mean, it's just, this has been unusual, but, there is opportunity here to reset, be creative, and think about things. And I know at the time that we're taping this is very early in this process. Everything's really only been shut down for about a week now. I am interested to see how the networks, the leagues, all the burgeoning type of leagues like eSports try to attack this if this is going to go on for an extended period of time, because there is opportunity here in front of them.
Yeah, and I think we'll see, as the Major League Baseball season is set to, would have been set to start this week, as we're taping, I think there's that feeling of, okay, now we're missing something from another sport, and I think one of the things I see that Stratomatic is going to simulate day by day as the baseball season goes on, starting on opening day. So they're going to simulate all 15 games that would have been played as baseball started its season, and release those all at once, and you can see box scores, and I think that's, if nothing else, for baseball fans, just to see, oh wow, the Nationals would have had Max Scherzer on the mound for opening day, and oh look, he threw a 3-hit shutout, and how about that? The defense of the title is off to a great start. I think the day-to-day thing, I think that's what I miss the most. Yeah. Is that we measure our days a lot of times about what's happening in sports, and there are games on the weekends, a weekend series for baseball, or football games if we get to that far. That Saturday is college football and the NFL is Sunday and Monday and all that sort of stuff, and we kind of build our weeks along with that with fantasy sports as well. We build the weeks based on when the week starts and what games are being played. So that's, I think, one of the biggest adjustments for sports fans is not having that and not knowing what day it is.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a major, whenever one of the leagues comes forward and says, even if they start playing without fans there, whenever they say they're going to do that, it's going to be a big mood adjustment for the rest of the nation, just to know that it's coming back and it's something that's familiar and it's part of your life. And when it starts to come back, I think it's going to make a major difference in the general overall panic and attitude of the country.
Yeah, I think, the NFL is kind of carrying things with free agency being an active thing that's going on that you don't need people in a stadium to take care of. So that's kind of feeding us for a little bit. But how much longer can we wait? And, they're not going to be Tom Brady signing a contract with somebody new every day. So don't know how long that's going to last.
Well, if he could demand a trade, it would make our lives a lot easier for the next couple of weeks.
Right.
Steve Gardner.
Play for all teams.
Yeah, please trade everybody. Steve Gardner from USA Today. Thanks so much for joining us, Steve.
Thank you, Bram.
Up next, Ann Hand, CEO of the Super League, on gaming going to everyone's forefront. This is the Future Sport Podcast. So everybody is shut down and on lockdown, and if listening to health officials staying away from one another, is the perfect time to play some games if you are so inclined, which brings us to our guest, Chairman and CEO Ann Hand of the Super League, which is a platform that leads video gamers in a community and content where you can play, you can connect, you can be friends, you can test your skill. Hey, Ann, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I hate phrasing it this way to start this, but there is an opportunity here, for people in this space because it allows you to be social, to use social distancing. How do you kind of view the opportunity that was presented to people like the Super League to expose what they have to people who are looking for distractions?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And you're right. In the midst of all the dire circumstances, gaming really is a way that people can stay connected with their friends. Gaming itself is already very different than when I was a kid going to the arcade. My socialness there was around the game, but when I was playing against the machine. Gaming has changed so much. And so there's a lot of community and chat built into games. With Super League has always been about taking that connection a level deeper. We want it to be about local gaming. We want it to be about ways that you can get other kids in your neighborhood or on your college campus to game with you. Because we know that the more you know the people in real life that you game with, just the gaming's more fun, it's better, there's no risk of toxicity in gaming. And so I say all that as a foundation for where we are today. In many ways, gaming is not only the preferred form of entertainment for Gen Z and millennials. It's bigger than TV. It's 3 times the size of the film box office globally. But now in a world of coronavirus, it is becoming really one of the stickiest ways that young people can still feel like they're having an opportunity to be social while being at home and to try to be a counterpunch to what could right now feel like a lot of desocialization, isolation. So we're very fortunate that we have a bit of a recession-resilient business model and have been able to see a pretty significant increase of engagement over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm in the same one, podcasting. I can do it anywhere. So,
Right.
it kind of still, business keeps moving along here. So for some that are fortunate like this, there is that possibility. Let me ask the one big question, just from a parent's point of view, which is there's going to be a lot of kids. They are going to be home a lot. I am sure you hear this all the time from parents who say, how much time will they be in front of a screen or playing? What do you say back to parents now where they have a ton of time on their hands and a ton of time to fill?
Yeah, it's the same thing I really said to them 4 or 5 years ago when we started Super League, and to brand partners and investors as well. We are in many ways, this notion of creating positive game connections, wrapping kind of the spirit of Little League or a recreational league around gaming is in many ways an antidote to screen time. This is a way for your kids to participate in a gaming experience, but do so in a way that also introduces them to new friends, teaches them about teamwork and collaboration. And so often when I'm talking to parents, they say, gosh, if my son or daughter is going to spend time gaming, this is the way I want them to game, because they're learning about a lot of other important things that they can apply to other aspects of their life. The beautiful thing for us, especially around our youth league product, the MindHut is a 24/7 gaming portal. Parents love it because they can go to MindHut and they can set up a private server for their son or daughter. And what that means is that you can set up a server or a private room, and your kids can invite specifically their friends to join them and game with them, and they're the people you know and trust for them to game with. And so it's considered a safer way to game for parents, because Again, you're not just getting on some random website and playing a game and having really no idea who else is in that game with your child. This is where you can personally invite your known kind of friends. It also has a social aspect to it. So it's kind of like Facebook meets a fun Minecraft gameplay forum. The other beautiful thing about it is because it's built around Minecraft. Minecraft is really probably the most beloved game by educators and parents. And the reason is because it is really based on the fundamentals of STEM learning. And so when your son or daughter is playing Minecraft, they're learning about the basics of coding. They're learning about 3D modeling. 3 of the 4 Girl Scout badges you can earn for STEM learning relate specifically to things that Minecraft has fundamentals in. And so there's a reason that there's also Minecraft EDU versions, because increasingly teachers are using it in the classroom. It's a lot more fun way to learn about speedometry instead of reading about it in a book, to inside a game actually learn how to get a car to be able to make a cool jump, over an obstacle. And so we're fortunate that that kind of better, safer way to game that's always been kind of the core principle of the company, Minehut is a real offering we have for parents and kids that really embodies all of that promise.
Let's talk about trends for a minute. You mentioned Minecraft, extraordinarily popular game. We follow in the competitive leagues things like League of Legends and the Overwatch League and that type of thing. What are you seeing out there that maybe the gamers are starting to lean towards that isn't quite of that realm yet, but getting there?
Yeah, so you've got these kind of crown jewel games for the professional eSports layer. So we mentioned League of Legends and Overwatch. League of Legends as well is an exceptional game to have your teenager play. It's kind of like the best version of the complexities and thinking power you get at chess. It has deep layers of strategy and critical thinking. And so there's all different genres of games that can really developmentally do a lot for your son or daughter. But what we're seeing right now with those games is that the people who are exceptionally good at those games, the amateurs that Super League is here to service, right now when they're at home alone and even pre-coronavirus, there's only so many ways they can play that game. They can just kind of keep jumping into queues or partnering up and playing with friends. But there's not a lot of new constructs to play that game in a different way. And it really is no different, I often say, than, I play tennis as a kid. I went to tennis camp. I took tennis lessons. At some point, I wanted a different experience. I wanted to join a team. And so that's the beauty of starting to offer mainstream or recreational esports is it's allowing for these people who are playing these more advanced games a chance to finally compete and kind of like their moment in the pros. And so Super League offers a lot of online tournament structures that enable those people who are right now spending more time at home and more time gaming to test their skills in different ways and get their talents noticed.
Let me go back to a couple of things that you talked about, which is, it does have this kind of feel of Little League, so it is attractive to a younger audience. The games clearly, for people my age, are very different now than they were when I was playing as a young person. And then there's the safety issue. Can you kind of go through the tech and how you see ensuring the safety of the people who are playing as they connect virtually with one another?
So yes, absolutely. When you talk about both our youth product, Minecraft, which is more skewed at that kind of 8 to 14-year-old, or our older products, which things like League of Legends, PUBG Mobile, Clash Royale, CSGO, those tournaments are more in that 16 to 28-year-old category. In both cases, we have a couple ways that we really ensure a good sportsmanship and a safe culture. We obviously monitor chat, and we've built in a lot of functionality. But first and foremost, we establish a pretty strict code of conduct. And I think it is a place where Super League has really differentiated itself, is that we really enforce that code of conduct. So we haven't been afraid to ban players the moment that those codes are tripped. And it's important, too, that what's happened over time is that then the community itself starts to self-regulate. So once those people are made an example of, we start to find the community say, hey, this might not be a place for you, player A or B, because, you want to play this game in a different way. Maybe you want to cheat, or maybe you just want to chat in a way that is negative to the other players. And so I'm pretty proud of, you can't eliminate all of that, but we have pretty active monitoring systems, and we move very swiftly when we see anything that kind of violates that code of conduct sportsmanship requirement that we have.
You had mentioned, and we've been following this too, that there are teams on college campuses, and now conferences are talking about putting together competitions. Where do you see that going, the level of potential scholarship gamers at campuses around the country?
Yeah, I mean, right now you've already got these active college clubs, right? And they're everything just like in regular Division I, sports. You've got your Division I team, but then, you also have everything down to intramurals for the more casual player of that sport happening on that college campus. So right now at the kind of the top tier of those eSports college teams, because those are kind of the top 5 or 10 most elite players on each of those campuses, they can continue, like Riot Games running that for their League of Legends eSports teams. They continue, from the comfort of their home to be able to run those competitions. So it's beautiful that it can easily switch to something that is at home and online, where Super League's technology offers an additional solution is really around what's happening for those IM teams, those, intramural or more casual gamers, that instead of it being 5 or 10 players, say on the campus of UCLA or Ohio State University, is actually a few hundred people who love to play League of Legends inside each of those campuses. And what we can do is start to offer a solution for them to stay connected, because the way they were staying connected before is they were walking over to the local computer or LAN center, or maybe hanging out in a dorm room together. And we can actually run competitions and leagues to keep them connected from their homes as well. We've already had several traditional even sports leagues reach out to us. So everything from a professional sports league that's saying, hey, we may not be having our season of basketball this year or baseball, but a lot of our players are gamers too. Maybe there's something neat we can do to help them connect to all their fans who happen to be gamers. Everything down to, we've had youth sports leagues, again, a youth sports soccer league, say, that have reached out and said, I still want to keep my kids connected, and gaming may be the one way I can do that if they can't get out on the soccer field. So we're pretty excited about the range of applications right now. We can use our technology to keep people socially together in and around the game than the one they had planned to play this season, but it's still connectedness and teamwork.
All right, I'll leave you with this. And this is a vague question, but with all the tech changing through the years, 5-10 years from now, how do you envision gaming? Is it more immersive? How are people connecting? How are they playing the games?
Yeah, I think that the difference will be that the infrastructure that Super League and others offer will really have established it no different than the ranges that you see from, call it a sport like basketball. You can drive down the road on any given day, usually pre-coronavirus, and you can see a pickup basketball game. You can see local leagues at gyms all the way through to a great college, match, all the way up to the most elite, professionals in the NBA. And right now, when you look at eSports, the infrastructure is just getting laid out at the professional level through the development of teams that have been around for some time, but now the leagues wrapped around them. And, what we've always been about is starting to lay out the infrastructure for everyone below those elite levels. So we're really about, there's 2.5 billion gamers on the planet. 50% of them identify as competitive. and they want their own ways to participate around the games that they love. And so for us, it's about creating leagues and playing fields for you to jump in, whether you're at home or you're physically together, and to get a different kind of competitive experience around that game.
Ann Hand is the chairman and CEO of Super League. Thank you. Be well, be safe. Thanks for joining us, Ann.
Thank you. You too.
Up next, Austin Smith, co-founder of Mission Control, which focuses on giving leagues everywhere a home to compete. This is the Future Sport Podcast. The Future Sport Podcast is brought to you by 3Advance. So let's take a moment to thank our friends at 3Advance. These guys are ranked one of the nation's top app developers. Their user experience and cloud expertise has helped grow a bunch of sports tech startups, including Team Builder, T-Box Tour, and in-game fantasy. So if you're looking for a development partner to bring your future sport tech to life, look these guys up. Go to 3advance.com. They're the team to make it happen, and advance you will. That's the number 3advance.com, and tell them Future Sport sent you. So we're all stuck inside, and that means there is some opportunities. If you aren't has gotten full on in eSports, here's your opportunity to learn all about it. And let's welcome in our guest, Austin Smith, who's the co-founder of Mission Control, which is a platform that allows workplaces, community centers, and college clubs to conduct their own eSports leagues. Hey, Austin, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with what Mission Control is and does.
Sure. So Mission Control is a B2B SaaS platform for rec league esports. Essentially, it's not too far off any other league management platform. It just focuses on conducting esports leagues or video game leagues rather than your typical basketball or kickball league. So what we do is essentially help intramural organizations or HR departments or other rec departments host Fortnite leagues and FIFA leagues, just like they might host, a rec basketball league or a beer league softball league or something like that over a summer. So we do the same thing. You can now play FIFA as your Tuesday night activity with a friend.
So, listen, I hate using the word opportunity here because this is an outbreak and it's pandemic and it's horrible what's going on. But I don't know any other word to use other than there is an opportunity if with some exposure to show people who are looking for entertainment and looking for things to do. There's this opportunity that exists. Can you kind of take us through how you've seen esports and growth in the midst of this very unusual outbreak?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it goes beyond opportunity and, things for us or for anybody else in esports. There's a need right now for something specifically that we focus on, and that's community. Part of this, social distancing, part of all of this is that we can't be around each other when, quite frankly, people need each other the most. This is a tough time. This is a scary time for the pandemic, for the economy, for all of these things, and we need each other. And the only way we can organize right now is digitally. And the thing about esports, even though there are a lot of correlations between traditional sports and esports, one thing that esports can do that traditional can't is be digital, and it can facilitate this community digitally. So one of the things that we see, one of the services that we can bring in this tough time for everybody and scary time for everybody is the idea that, hey, you can use esports as something to gather around. You can use esports as your means for community instead.
So let's just say here I am. I'm not a league. I'm not a campus, but I'm looking for something to do. I've got enthusiasts. We want to play a certain game together. Can I work with you? How do I work with you?
Well, absolutely. So we primarily serve organizations at this point, and that means working with community organizations that host rec leagues. So that might be an HR department. So you can bring our services, Mission Control, to your HR department and say, hey, well, we're all working from home. Here's a way for us to be together. You could also say, check out your local, sports sports leagues. So there's a whole bunch of adult rec league groups that work with us through the SSIA. There's also a couple of brands and Parks and Rec departments that work for us. So there's a good possibility, especially if you're in an area like Dallas or Tulsa or St. Louis, you might already have a community group organizing eSport rec leagues in your area. All you have to do is download Mission Control and find them.
You're probably following this very closely, which is the trends of the games, of what people want to play. I know it's very early at the time that we're taping this in everyone really being locked down. Are you seeing changing tastes or changing trends by the fact that there are people that may not have done a lot of esports but are looking into it now?
I can't see it perfectly from my perspective. The angle that we take in general, there's 103 million individuals in the United States who play video games together. So those are the people who are playing video games as a multiplayer experience, an average of 8 hours a week. This is a large group of people. And what I think is really happening more than anything is a lot of those people who are already generally comfortable with casual video gaming are just having more time to play, having more time to jump into it, and potentially are just getting more intense about some of the new games that are just out. I don't see too many trends about which game people care about more, other than the typical, ups and downs of different games. Everybody loves Warzone right now. I'm one of those people. There's a lot of people who always play Rocket League, and those people are just playing Rocket League more. There's a lot of people who always play Fortnite, and there's people are playing Fortnite more. And I think more than anything, as with the cultural trend that's generally been moving towards acceptance of video gaming and video gaming with others, and just over the past couple of years, I think this is just one more, part of that cultural trend towards the significance of video gaming as a community activity, digitally or in person, that we've seen in the last couple of years. I think that it's more of a quantity. How many people are doing it rather than anything else.
Let's talk about the tech on your end for a moment. What is important for you from a tech perspective of organizing these leagues? What do the users, the leagues, these departments want from you?
What you have out there around esports, and what you've had for a while, is a lot of professional play. You have a lot of professional and amateur play. You have varsity play. You have things that are incredibly competitive, and rightfully so. There's a lot of excitement around the competitive of esports. There's a lot of people who are really good at different games. And what those groups serve is a medium for excellence. For excellence in esports, for excellence in gaming. They focus on the competitive experience. What we've turned around and focused on is the community experience. And that's because I grew up playing video games with my brother, with my friends. It's just a way to hang out. I'm not very good. I don't really care to be good. I play as a way to spend time with others, as a way to spend time with my brother, for example. And I know that there's a lot of other people out there like me who don't really care about the competitive aspect, should totally be there and exist and expand. But there's a large group of people out there who just care about the recreational aspect. And that's where we focus on the tech side to create a very focused community experience that's delivering the amenity of a social experience. And more so than, hey, you can win $100,000. No, hey, maybe you might win a t-shirt, but what you're really doing is getting the schedule of every Tuesday night to spend time with your friends, doing something you find entertaining, like Warzone. And it's not much crazier than that. The tech is focused on a community experience. It's focused on group chats and sending gifts, and maybe ribbing people a little bit about getting them on a headshot in Warzone or whatever it might have been. That's where the focus is, and not so much on seeing who can win first place.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's my experience with it, and clearly with very different video game. I'm older than you, very different video games and the technology there, but it was a casual experience. It was a way for us just to get together and have fun with one another, and there was no money on the line, and it was trash talking. It had nothing more than nothing more than that. Do you think as this industry has kind of exploded here in interest, that part of it was forgotten, that the focus went too far on the professional aspect of it and less away from actually this is just something a lot of people want to do, and not unlike backyard basketball games, 99.9% of the people are not going to play in the NBA.
Oh, and that's exactly what this is all based upon. And I wouldn't say that it's forgotten. I just would say that it developed differently, and it needed, two specific things to develop. And that is one, the cultural, thing that I mentioned earlier, where, first, you have things for a couple of years boil up to where Fortnite suddenly is this massive phenomenon where everybody plays it, boys and girls, all these ages, all these different demographics. And the reason is because they really did a great job of promoting that. Fortnite gaming is for everybody, and just play with your friends, squad up, where we dropping. Like that was the whole idea of that experience. And that was a big cultural milestone for a lot of people, that just, hey, gaming and nerdy gaming, beyond just, hey, I'm going to play Madden with my guys, is acceptable and okay and fun. So that was one thing. But the second thing is the technological aspect, and that's just the idea that people can easily play together.
Yeah.
And my brother plays on PC a lot. My best friends play on PlayStation, but I have an Xbox. So if you don't have cross-platform play, we can't play together. And just for the other night, the first time, hanging out in quarantine, I played online with one of my buddies, one of my best friends, who also loves video games. We had never played online together before because he likes to use PC and I like to use Xbox. He's one of my closest friends. I was the best man at his wedding. And why aren't we gaming together? Because cross-platform wasn't enabled on certain games until more recently. And we just got into that. So there's some technical things that, they're small barriers, but now that they're removed, have caused a massive impact. So suddenly you don't have to worry about just getting 6 people together for your League of Legends professional game on one team, on one console and so on. That now 103 million people can easily get together on Fortnite or Rocket League or Call of Duty because they're all cross-platform. So problem, it doesn't matter. Those small barriers aren't there, and culturally it's a lot more acceptable. So I think it was forgotten in that it wasn't focused on, but I think there's a couple of natural things you just had to wait for, and now it's just the perfect time, the perfect storm between the cultural and technological aspects that say, hey, now let's use this as a social gathering tool. Let's play eSports like we play beer league softball and spend time together, and especially when we can't spend time together physically, let's do so digitally.
Yeah, listen, there's not a lot good coming out of a spread of a virus like this, but the creativity and the outside-the-box thinking is one of them, and you guys clearly are at the forefront of it. It's very interesting. Austin Smith is the co-founder of Mission Control. Austin, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thank you.
That will do it for us this week. As always, the future is now. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. The Future Sport Podcast is brought to you by 3 Advance, developers of sports tech apps that are AI-powered and UX-focused. So if you're looking to create some apps for your startup or your sports biz calls for some artificial or business intelligence, you should check out 3 Advance. They're incredible. Go to 3advance.com. That's the number 3advance.com.